My name is Alex, and I'm 23 years old. I have been dreaming of visiting Greece for as long as I can remember. I'm a travel enthusiast, and I love exploring new cultures, places, and of course food. But this trip wasn't just about seeing new places. It was special because I was going with my girlfriend, Emily. She's 22, a college student, and the love of my life. We've been dating for almost 2 years, and this was our first big trip together. We had been planning this trip for months. Greece seemed like the perfect destination. Beautiful islands, delicious food, historical sights, and a romantic atmosphere. Emily and I love spending time together, whether it's cooking at home or going on small weekend getaways, but Greece was a big step up. We were both excited and nervous because this trip was going to be so different from anything we had done before. The day finally arrived, and we boarded the flight to Athens. I could feel the excitement in my chest as the plane took off. I looked over at Emily, who was leaning her head on my shoulder. "I can't believe we're actually going to Greece," she whispered, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I kissed the top of her head and smiled. "I know, it's going to be the trip of a lifetime." Arriving in Greece. When we landed in Athens, the warm breeze hit our faces, and the bright sun welcomed us. We got a taxi from the airport to our hotel in the city centre. The streets were filled with small shops, restaurants, and historical buildings. Everything looked different. The architecture, the streets, and even the people seemed so relaxed. Our hotel was cozy, with a balcony that overlooked the city. From our room, we could see the Acropolis in the distance. It was breathtaking. Emily immediately ran to the balcony and stood there, taking it all in. I joined her, wrapping my arms around her waist. "This is perfect," she said softly. "I'm so happy we're here together." That night, we went out to explore the local neighborhood. We found a small tavern and decided to have dinner there. The food was incredible. Grilled fish, fresh vegetables, olive oil, feta cheese, and pita bread. We tried moussaka, a traditional Greek dish made with eggplant, minced meat, and a creamy bechamel sauce. We also ordered some baklava for dessert, a sweet pastry filled with nuts and honey. As we ate, we talked about how beautiful Greece was and how lucky we were to be here together, exploring Athens. The next morning we woke up early, excited to explore the city. We had breakfast at a small cafe near our hotel, Greek yogurt with honey and walnuts, freshly squeezed orange juice, and warm pastries. After breakfast, we made our way to the Acropolis. The ancient ruins were even more magnificent up close. We spent hours walking around, taking pictures, and learning about the history of Greece. Emily was especially fascinated by the Parthenon, and I couldn't help but admire how passionate she was about history. As the day went on, we visited the temple of Olympian Zeus, the ancient agora, and the Plaka neighborhood, which was filled with charming little streets, shops, and cafes. We stopped at a local shop to buy some souvenirs. Emily bought a beautiful hand-painted ceramic plate, and I picked up a bottle of olive oil and a leather journal. That evening, we had dinner at a rooftop restaurant with a view of the Acropolis lit up at night. The atmosphere was magical. We talked, laughed, and shared stories about our relationship. At one point, I pulled out a small gift I had brought for her, a delicate silver necklace with a small heart pendant. "I wanted to give you something special to remember this trip," I said as I placed the necklace around her neck. She smiled, her eyes welling up with tears, and kissed me softly. "I love you," she whispered. I kissed her back and held her close. A surprise in Santorini. After a few days in Athens, we decided to take a ferry to Santorini, one of the most famous Greek islands. Santorini is known for its whitewashed buildings with blue domes, crystal-clear waters, and stunning sunsets. The ferry ride was long, but the view of the islands was worth it. When we arrived, it felt like we had stepped into a postcard. We checked into a beautiful hotel that had a private terrace overlooking the sea. The room was decorated with white linens, and the windows opened up to a breathtaking view of the caldera. As soon as we arrived, Emily wanted to explore, so we went out for a walk around the island. The narrow streets were lined with small boutiques, cafes, and local art galleries. We stopped at a bakery to try some fresh Greek pastries and coffee. Later that evening, I had a surprise planned for Emily. I had arranged a private dinner on the terrace of our hotel. As the sun began to set, the sky turned shades of pink, orange, and purple. The table was set with candles, and the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks below made the moment even more romantic. Emily was speechless when she saw the setup. "You did this?" she asked, her voice full of emotion. I smiled and nodded. "I wanted to make this night special for you." We sat down and enjoyed a delicious meal: grilled octopus, Greek salad, and fresh seafood. As we ate, we watched the sun slowly disappear into the horizon. After dinner, we danced on the terrace under the stars. The night was perfect, and I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. After dancing, we kissed deeply, and one thing led to another. That night, we shared one of the most intimate moments we had ever experienced. It felt like time had stopped, and it was just the two of us, lost in the beauty of Greece and each other. Cooking together. The next morning, we decided to take a break from exploring and spend the day cooking together. We had both fallen in love with Greek food, so we wanted to learn how to make some traditional dishes ourselves. We found a local cooking class where we learned how to make spanakopita, a spinach and feta pie, tzatziki, a yogurt and cucumber dip, and souvlaki, grilled meat skewers. We had so much fun cooking together, laughing as we tried to follow the instructions. Emily was great at folding the phyllo pastry for the spanakopita, while I handled grilling the meat. After the class, we sat down to enjoy the meal we had prepared. It tasted even better knowing that we had made it ourselves. Road trip around the island. Later in the week, we rented a car and went on a road trip around Santorini. We visited the famous Red Beach, which gets its name from the red volcanic cliffs surrounding it. The beach was beautiful, and we spent the afternoon swimming and relaxing by the water. We also visited the village of Oia, known for its incredible views of the sunset. We wandered through the streets, taking pictures and stopping at little shops along the way. Emily bought a pair of handmade sandals, and I found a leather bracelet that I liked. We ended the day by watching the sunset from a cliffside restaurant. The colors of the sky were unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was the perfect end to a perfect day. Final days in Greece. As our trip was coming to an end, we both felt a little sad that we had to leave. Greece had been everything we hoped for and more. We had experienced so much together, exploring ancient ruins, trying new foods, cooking together, and sharing intimate moments. On our last night in Greece, we sat on the balcony of our hotel, looking out at the sea. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence for a while. "I don't want this to end," she said softly. I kissed her forehead and smiled. "This is just the beginning," I said. "We'll have more trips, more adventures, and more moments like this." As the stars twinkled above us, I realized how lucky I was to have Emily by my side. This trip had brought us even closer, and I knew that no matter where life took us, we would always have these memories of Greece, the place where we fell even more in love. Our trip to Greece was unforgettable, but little did I know, it was only the beginning of a beautiful journey with Emily. After returning home, life went back to its usual rhythm, but Greece had brought us closer, and we started talking more seriously about our future together. The proposal. A year after our magical trip, I knew it was time to take the next step. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Emily, and I started planning the perfect proposal. I remembered how much she loved surprises, so I wanted to make it as special as possible. After a lot of thought, I decided to propose in the same place where we shared our most intimate moment, Santorini. I secretly booked flights and reserved the same hotel where we had stayed during our trip. One evening, I told her I had planned a short getaway for us, but kept the destination a secret. Emily was curious and kept asking me where we were going, but I just smiled and said, "You'll see." When we landed in Santorini, Emily's face lit up. "We're back!" she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me. She had no idea what was about to happen. We spent the first day revisiting our favorite spots, the beaches, the narrow streets filled with little shops, and the cozy cafes. On the second evening, I took her to the same terrace where I had surprised her with a private dinner a year ago. As the sun began to set, the sky once again turned into shades of pink and purple, just like the first time. I got down on one knee, pulled out the ring I had been hiding in my pocket, and looked up at Emily. "Emily," I began, my heart racing, "you make my life brighter every day, just like this sunset. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, of course," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. I slid the ring onto her finger, and we embraced, kissing as the sun dipped below the horizon. That night we celebrated our engagement with a candlelit dinner, just the two of us. We talked about our future, the wedding, and everything we dreamed of doing together. It was the perfect start to the next chapter of our lives. The wedding. Our wedding took place 6 months later, and it was everything we had dreamed of. We decided to have a small, intimate ceremony on a beach, keeping the theme simple and romantic. Emily looked stunning in her white lace dress, her hair gently blowing in the ocean breeze. I couldn't take my eyes off her as she walked down the aisle toward me. We exchanged vows in front of our closest family and friends. I promised to always love her, to be there through the good and bad times, and to continue exploring the world together. Emily's vows were equally heartfelt, and by the time we said "I do," there wasn't a dry eye in sight. After the ceremony, we had a small reception with Greek food, to remind us of our first big trip, and danced the night away under the stars. Our honeymoon, of course, was in Greece. This time we visited Mykonos and Crete, two other beautiful Greek islands. We spent our days exploring, relaxing on the beach, and just enjoying the first few weeks of being husband and wife. Holidays in Italy. Our next big holiday took us to Italy. Both of us had always wanted to explore the country known for its rich history, art, and incredible food. This time we decided to make it a road trip, starting from Rome and ending in the beautiful Amalfi Coast. In Rome, we visited the Colosseum, the Vatican, and the Trevi Fountain. Emily was fascinated by the art and history, while I couldn't get enough of the Italian food. We had pasta, pizza, and gelato at every meal, and each dish seemed better than the last. From Rome, we drove to Florence, the heart of the Renaissance. The cobblestone streets, the magnificent cathedrals, and the museums filled with masterpieces left us in awe. We spent hours wandering around the Uffizi Gallery, admiring works by Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Botticelli. One evening, as we walked across the Ponte Vecchio bridge, I surprised Emily with another small gift, a bracelet I had bought from a local jeweler earlier in the day. "I thought this would be a nice addition to your collection," I said with a smile, as I fastened it around her wrist. She kissed me softly, her eyes filled with love. Our final stop in Italy was the Amalfi Coast, and it was as picturesque as we had imagined. We stayed in a small villa overlooking the sea, and each morning we woke up to the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. We spent our days driving along the winding coastal roads, stopping at small towns like Positano and Ravello to explore. We also took a boat trip to the island of Capri, where we swam in the crystal-clear waters of the Blue Grotto. A new tradition, cooking together. One of the things we continued doing after our first trip to Greece was cooking together. Every weekend, we would choose a different cuisine and spend the afternoon preparing a meal from scratch. We took a few more cooking classes during our travels, learning how to make fresh pasta in Italy, sushi in Japan, and paella in Spain. Back home, our kitchen was filled with memories of our travels. We had shelves stocked with spices, olive oils, and cookbooks from all over the world. Emily loved experimenting with new recipes, and I enjoyed being her sous chef, chopping vegetables and grilling meats. We made it a tradition to cook a special meal together on our anniversary, trips to other countries. Over the years, Emily and I visited many more countries. We went to Japan, where we marveled at the cherry blossoms in Kyoto and spent a night in a traditional ryokan, complete with a hot spring bath. We also explored the bustling streets of Tokyo, trying out different street foods and visiting the famous Tsukiji fish market. In Thailand, we experienced the vibrant culture of Bangkok and spent a week relaxing on the beaches of Phuket. We took a cooking class in Chiang Mai, where we learned how to make authentic Thai dishes like green curry and pad Thai. One of the most memorable trips was our road trip through New Zealand. The landscapes were unlike anything we had ever seen: snow-capped mountains, rolling hills, and crystal-clear lakes. We spent our days hiking, exploring vineyards, and even bungee jumping. Emily and I both loved the sense of adventure that New Zealand brought out in us. Starting a family. After years of traveling, cooking together, and sharing countless adventures, we decided it was time to start a family. Our lives were filled with love, and we wanted to share that love with a little one. Emily and I were overjoyed when we found out she was pregnant. We started planning for our new life as parents, but we promised each other that we would continue exploring the world together, this time with our child. When our daughter, Sophie, was born, she brought even more happiness into our lives. We still traveled, but now our trips were a little different. We took her to Greece when she was 3, showing her the places where our journey had started. We also introduced her to different foods from around the world, and even though she was small, she loved trying new things. As Sophie grew older, we continued to travel as a family, visiting new countries and creating new traditions. Emily and I made sure to teach her the importance of adventure, curiosity, and love, the same things that had brought us together all those years ago. The future. Even after years of marriage, Emily and I never stopped exploring the world and discovering new things about each other. Our love grew stronger with each trip, each meal we cooked together, and each moment we shared as a family. Now, as I sit on the terrace of our home, looking out at the sunset with Emily by my side and Sophie playing in the garden, I realize how truly blessed I am. Our journey has been filled with love, adventure, and unforgettable memories, and I know that the best is yet to come. Our next trip? Who knows? But one thing is certain: wherever we go, we'll go together, hand in hand, ready for the next chapter in our incredible story.